I don't care if you're an entry-level SDR who just started out in tech sales or a seasoned account executive. If you want to blow out your numbers and have big paydays, you're going to have to get really good at cold calling. Cold calling is the highest converting outbound motion, and I noticed that people tend to shy away from it because it's scary, but if you can get someone live, oh my gosh, you can land a monster deal. When I started out at Google Cloud, my first cold call actually led to a $10 million deal with OfferUp that changed the trajectory of my career. Thank God I had the guts to pick up the phone and I knew what to say even when the prospect was on our competitor. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step roadmap for your next cold call so that you know exactly what to say at different phases of the cold call journey, and you have complete confidence that you can open, smoothly run, and close a cold call to generate more meetings and pipeline and get bigger paydays as an SDR and beyond. If you guys get value out of this video, make sure to hit the like button and share it with more people who could benefit from the message. Subscribe to my channel and subscribe to my Sell More, Live More newsletter linked in the description of this video. Before we dig into exactly what to say, mindset is really everything in success in sales and in life. So let's look at 5 mindset tips to crush your next cold calls. Number 1, use a cold call flow rather than memorizing a word-for-word script so you don't come across as too robotic and inauthentic. Number 2, avoid a high-pitched tone and speak calmly from your chest voice, like talking to a friend. Number 3, practice, 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 and get real-world feedback from top performers so you can adapt your flow to the context of your company and the value that your company delivers. Number 4, spend 5 to 10 minutes researching the individual and the company you are reaching out to, and use the nuggets you find to make the call feel more warm, personal, and relevant. And number 5, remember that nerves are normal. And rather than resisting them, accept your nerves. Focus on what could go right and be curious to help the customer be successful. It's amazing when you come from a place of service, it can really transform how you show up on your cold calls. Now let's look at a cold call flow that will show you exactly how to open, run, and close your cold calls, but at the same time can be customized to the context of the company you're at and your own authentic style. First, we'll look at an opener that puts the prospect at ease, humanizes you, and opens up the opportunity to share why you're calling. Hi Tim, this is Chris calling from Bespin Global. I realize I'm completely interrupting your day, so before I go any further, do you have 30 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? You can let me know if you want to keep talking from there. That's what we call a permission-based opener. Or you could try out this opener. Hi Tim, this is Chris calling from Bespin Global. We've never spoken before, but I was hoping you could help me out for a moment. The tone of this one is like someone wandering around on the street, feeling lost, looking for their sense of direction. And there's something innate in all of us humans, for the most part, where we want to help other people out, so asking for help is actually a very disarming strategy. After you open up the cold call, make sure to pause to let the customer speak. Now, you might face some initial resistance where they try and get you off the phone. They might say, "Sorry, I'm running to a meeting, I'm busy." And in response, you could say something like this: "Tim, I get you're super busy and running to a meeting. Would it make sense for me to briefly tell you why I'm calling so you can decide if there's even a reason for me to call you back in the future?" Now, if they push back on you again, then I would suggest you just ask for the best time to call them back, and that'll build trust with the prospect, and next time you call back, it's going to be much more warm. But hopefully, you get to share the reason why you're calling, and that's what we'll look at next. Thanks, Tim. I head up business development at Bespin Global with a focus on supporting other fintech companies like Financial Services Incorporated in the local Austin market. And many engineering leaders like yourself find that they're struggling with cloud costs that are exorbitant, they're out of control, and they want to find ways to save more money and free up cash that can be invested into innovation and growing the business. We recently helped Apex Financial Solutions, who is spending 20% more on their AWS bill than they'd like to be, reduce their costs by 20%, as well as set up a strategy to find additional cost savings, and we think we can get the savings up to 30%. And we made the VP of Engineering look like a hero, and he actually got promoted to CTO as a result. Now, a quick aside to look at what I've done so far is, first I said I head up, which makes me seem like I have a little bit more authority and I'm a true professional. And then I made it feel very warm and relevant and familiar. I mentioned working with other fintech companies like the prospect I was reaching out to. I mentioned working with other engineering leaders in the same role as the prospect I was reaching out to. I also mentioned that I worked in the local Austin market, which makes it feel even more warm and familiar familiar, and I mentioned the high-level pains we solved around cost optimization, and then I shared some social proof of a relevant case study of another financial services company or fintech company that we helped produce a specific result. And I quantified the business outcome. I said we helped them save 20% and had a strategy to get them to 30%. Now, what I could have done to take it a step further is showed how much actual dollars that we saved them. Now, having made it warm and familiar and highlighting relevant challenges that we solve, and even sharing a case study and proof point of the great work that we do to solve those specific challenges, I wrap that all up with an open-ended question related to the pain that the prospects might have that we are well positioned to solve. I'm curious, how are you managing your cloud costs today? Asking an open-ended question like this will get the prospect talking and hopefully sharing relevant ammunition that you can use as a strong reason for setting the meeting. Hopefully they have the pain that you mentioned and they'll share a little bit about what that pain looks like and what they've been doing to try and solve it. And hopefully you can use that again as a lever to set the meeting. Open-ended questions on cold calls are really powerful because they keep the conversation going, they uncover more data, and ultimately the data shows that cold calls that last longer tend to have higher conversion rates. If in this case they admitted that cloud cost savings was a priority and an issue they were working on, or they admit to facing whatever challenge that your solution might solve, you can ask some more open-ended questions. How long has that been a problem? What have you done to try and fix the problem so far? What happens if you don't do anything about it? Some other good questions to ask to keep the conversation going while you think of something else to ask is, oh, why is that? Can you tell me more about that? What does that look like? When you ask these questions, make sure to pause and let the prospect talk. Now, the reality of cold calling is you're almost always going to face resistance. It's not going to be a walk in the park where the customer just decides to sign themselves up for a meeting without pushing back a little bit. So let's briefly talk objection handling. What if the prospect says, we're all set, or we're not interested? You could say something like this to diffuse the pressure and put them at ease. Oh, that's okay. That's not a problem. Now, I know it's not your job to help a salesperson, but is it because you're working with another vendor, you have other priorities, or you just want to get me off the phone? If it's the latter, that's okay. I've already been fired 5 times today. When I say I've been fired 5 times, that refers to being hung up on 5 times earlier in the day. The whole point of a response like that is to put the prospect at ease, take the pressure off, and get them to open up to understand the true source of the objection. Is this a legitimate objection you can't get around, or is it just a misunderstanding where you could shift their perspective? And they might respond to this by saying, yeah, we're using another vendor. And you can handle that by saying the following. I'm sorry, another vendor? This is called a mirror, and it's actually a top hostage negotiator technique popularized by Chris Voss, who wrote a book, Never Split the Difference, where you repeat back their objection with a slight uptone as if beckoning them to share a little bit more information. A mirror can feel really awkward, but if you can hold the silence afterwards, it's quite effective at getting the prospect to spill the beans and tell you more. Or you could just say, like the previous objection response, that's okay, that's not a problem. This will put the prospect at ease because you're going in the same direction of the objection and you're not resisting it and trying to be defensive about it. After you say, that's okay, that's not a problem, you could say something like this. Sounds like you're happy with them. How's that working out for you? Pause and let them talk. From there, you could say, are you open to exploring options beyond what you currently use today, so you have us in your back pocket as an insurance policy for the future? This response and this question is really reasonable. You're positioning yourself as an alternative that gives your prospect more options, flexibility, and reduces their risk in case there's an issue with their current vendor in the future. You could also ask, are there any gaps with your current solution between what you have today and where you want to be in the future? If you don't mind me asking. There's a little magic in that final phrase I threw in at the end, if you don't mind me asking, which is something that I learned from Richard Whaleman, who I had on my podcast, and he's a keynote speaker and author on customer success. He's actually a Hall of Fame speaker, and this guy really knows what he's talking about. Now, hopefully you uncover a gap with their current solution that you might be able to fill, or they think, you know what, it makes sense to have you guys in our back pocket for the future as an insurance policy, and then you have a reason for setting the meeting. But remember that objection handling really is more like truth seeking. It's not about setting the meeting at all costs and pushing past the objection at all costs. Customers don't want to be handled. It's really getting to the bottom of whether the objection is legitimate or not. If you find out an objection is truly legitimate, like they're locked into a contract with your competitor for multiple years, then maybe you just want to say, hey, let's follow up in the future, and when's the best time to reach back out to see if things have changed. One of my mentors at Google Cloud, who went on to Harvard Business and now is in the venture capital space, always said, Chris, in our territory, let's celebrate disqualification just as much as qualifying great opportunities. Because when we disqualify things that aren't a fit, we can focus on chasing the fish that are a better fit for us to help. Now, people ask me, how many times should I push through objections until I finally let the customer go? At a high level, I'd say that people often do give up and take no too easily in sales and in life, and you do need to push past initial objections. I'd encourage you to push through 3 objections until you let a prospect off the hook. When you face objections, make sure to hang in there. A prospect might say, hey, I gotta go, thanks. But they might not actually hang up on you, and definitely don't hang up on yourself. Throw in one more question. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm probably wasting your time. Let me get to the point before you hang up. So again, don't take no too easily, but at the same time, after 3 no's, it's time to move on. Now, hopefully in the course of your cold call, you're able to identify a reason for the next meeting, maybe a pain point that you can solve. So it eventually becomes time to ask for the meeting. You could say something like this: do you mind if I make a suggestion? And they'll say, sure. It sounds like cost savings is a priority for you right now, so I'd love to set you up with our account executive who speaks with a lot of other customers like yourself. And at minimum, you'll come away from the conversation with some new ideas on what they're seeing in the market and an open line of communication, even if there isn't a fit to immediately work together today. Looking at my calendar right now, we've got time tomorrow at 4 p.m. or Friday at anywhere between 2 and 5 p.m. Do you mind pulling up your calendar? I'm curious, do any of these times work for you? One key thing to note is you're going to want to set the meeting as soon after the cold call as possible so you stay top of mind and the topic is fresh for the prospect. And when all is said and done, you want to have a nose for the close and lock in that meeting on the call before hanging up. Perfect. I'm sending over an invite now. Can you let me know when you see it and have accepted it? Awesome. Looking forward to discussing your cost savings goals and where we can support this coming Friday at 3 p.m. And feel free to forward this along to anyone else from your team who you might want to include in the conversation. All right, have a great day. Click. Well, there you have it. There's a full cold call flow, a framework to open cold calls, run them successfully, deal with resistance when objections come up, and ultimately close and set the next step. Now, there's no perfect scripting and phraseology when it comes to success in tech sales and cold calling more specifically, so feel free to take this flow and customize it to the context of your company and to your own authentic style. Remember, this flow is just a guideline for you to innovate with. Now, we started off with some cold calling mindset, and I want to finish up with some cold calling mindset as well. If you want to break through early on in your tech sales career, you've got to get on the phone early and often, stay persistent, and always remember the common denominator of success. The common denominator of success is illuminated in a famous piece of sales literature by Albert E.N. Gray, and it's the secret to success of every man and woman in any domain of life. It is a principle that is irrefutable, so you better embrace it. Here's a quick quote from the literature itself. The common denominator of success, the secret of success of every man or woman who has ever been successful, lies in the fact that he or she formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. It means that we've got to call strangers and interrupt their day. Who in their right mind would actually want to do that? At the same time, cold calling is the most effective way to get meetings in sales development, and it's a powerful skill that greatly increases our ability to make things happen that wouldn't otherwise. When we appreciate cold calling's ability to help us create opportunities out of thin air and to increase our earnings and impact, and when we gain clarity on how the results we produce through cold calling can support our broader vision and dreams, then we are willing to embrace the suck and make a habit of doing this highly uncomfortable thing over and over and over. Because we know that this discomfort is the tuition we pay for greatness, and one day we will have so much money we don't know what to do with ourselves, and have such a network that we'll never have to cold call again. Creating the life of your dreams starts today, and it's time to get uncomfortable right now. Pick up the phone to call that prospect and uncover that next deal. Pick up the phone to call that hiring manager at your future employer. and pick up the phone to call that love interest who might actually be the one. The worst case scenario is you get rejected, but the best case scenario could be even greater than you could ever realize. Are you pumped up now? Are you not entertained, as Gladiator says? I hope so. It's time to smile and dial. Let's get after it. If you got value out of this video, of course, hit the like button and share it with more people who could benefit from the message. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and my Sell More, Live More newsletter. And if you're looking to invest in coaching to break into tech sales, become a better cold caller, and get promoted from SDR to AE, feel free to book time with me. I've got my Calendly link linked in the description of this video. To your success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living, and we'll see you in the next one.